Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. I'm your host, Jared Moon. The Garage Gym Athlete Podcast is a result of my desire to build better humans, unequivocal coaches, and autonomous athletes. I've spent the last several years obsessing over program design, nutrition, and every other way you can optimize human performance. This podcast distills the latest scientific research with what I've learned and blends it with the not-so-scientific field of mental toughness. We are here to build you into a dangerously effective athlete. If you enjoy this podcast, you can find out more about our training at garagegymathlete.com. And if you want to pursue more into the field of coaching and programming, head to endof3fitness.com. Thanks for listening. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. Jared Moon here with Joe Courtney. What's up, Joe?
What's up, Jared?
And Ryan. I'm going to jack up the last name if I just go for it. So I'm going to let you do it.
Okay. Ryan Keiler. Nice to meet you, everybody.
I want to say Killer every time I see it.
Killer's pretty cool, too.
Yeah, it's not... I don't know if you ever have someone you work with. Like, I see your name quite a bit. You've been to the coaching program. You've been on the podcast before. But in my brain, that's what I say just because it's so cool.
That's so fun. I'll take the cool. I like it.
Yeah. Even though we've had you on and I know that's not how it's pronounced. But anyway, man, welcome back to the podcast. This is, it was April 2019, the last time we had you on. So it's been a while. A lot has happened. And so we're going to start with updates. But for anyone listening who didn't listen to the first episode, could you just give us a brief, who you are, what you do, and all that good stuff, and where you're from?
Sure. My name's Ryan Keiler. I'm from Chicago, the Chicago suburbs. I've been a member of Garage Gym Athlete for a little over 2 years now. I believe I joined in either March or April of 2018. At the time I did the first podcast last April, I was in a different role. Since then, I was working in a hospital doing education, stroke education. Since then, I've switched to doing international work with hospitals. And so COVID has really been interesting for me with not being able to travel and everything. But throughout all that, having the garage gym and the setup and the community especially has really been good to keep sort of a consistent schedule and a consistent consistency with working out and with training and keeping yourself focused during all of this. So it's been really helpful. I'm married. I got two beautiful kids, 9 and a 4-year-old. So they keep me occupied, but it's definitely fun.
Awesome, man. Yeah, it's quite a shift. So tell me a little bit more about that. What work looked like, let's say pre-March, I guess, and then rolling into pandemic style lifestyle. What was the biggest change for you compared to your normal schedule? We were kind of set up to do well. My normal schedule when I was in town, I would work in the office 2 days a week, and I would work from home 3 days a week anyways. And so I'm kind of used to working from home. And then I would travel occasionally, about once a quarter. And that was really interesting. It was, one of the things I really liked about the job. And, God willing, going forward, it will still be something I like about the job at one point. But being able to interact with hospitals all over the world, just so interesting to me, because the world is so big, it's so different. And that's one of the cool things about Garage Gym Athlete is that there's people from all over the world. And so the biggest change was being 100% home. While my kids are 100% home, I think that's the biggest change. I don't really have a specific office space. And so my kids doing e-learning, me working from home, that's been something to learn to work with. And I spent a lot more time on Zoom doing this sort of thing. So the biggest thing I miss is interacting with people in person. You go there in person and you get to make those relationships. And when you communicate with people in person, you can pick up on their nonverbals, especially when you're communicating through translators, which I do a lot. And so you really miss that sometimes when you're doing a translator over Zoom. It gets even more difficult, but you learn and you adapt. But like I said, probably the best thing was having the garage gym. So you see people would go on at the beginning of, during the lockdowns or whatever your state is doing or wherever your country is doing, and they're closing down gyms and people lose sort of that stability, that continuity, the thing that most people start their day that way. I start my day that way. Some people work out in the afternoon, but it kind of just throws you off. You get sluggish, you get upset, you get frustrated, but it's something to focus on. And when I've been really frustrated, it's been something that's been good for me to just
something to focus on. I'm going to get up, going to do my training, going to start the day well, no matter what else is going on. So control what you can control. So it's been really helpful to me to be part of the community as well, and to have the whole garage gym set up, especially to have a lot of the equipment first, because I was just talking before the podcast with Jared and Joe that you go on Rogue, you go on these websites and everything is sold out for months and months because all of a sudden everybody wants to be a garage gym athlete.
We were the cool kids before being cool.
Yeah, and it actually just saved me money when they were sold out of everything, because I would go to Rogue and basically couldn't buy anything. And I was like, well, okay, I have everything I need. I guess I don't really need to buy anything else, so it's it saved me money, as opposed to people, trying to get all this equipment that just, everyone was trying to get at the same time. Training wise, has anything changed for you? Any, results or goals that you're happy about or going for?
What's been interesting for me, I joined in the group to join the BCT track back after you announced that on the last mid-cycle, end of cycle webinar. And that's been really helpful for me. I mean, it's been really interesting. The two most kind of important exercises to me that I want to work on, that I've struggled with, one that I really enjoy and one that I actually didn't enjoy at all, was really enjoyed running. I used to run track and cross country, but over time kind of lost some of my cardio fitness and just wanted to get my mile time back down, really wanted to work on that. And one of the workouts that, not that I didn't enjoy it, but I always had this sort of mental block because of a couple of times I've had to bail when I get under heavy weight, or I get in my head when I do it is back squat. So it made sense to go ahead and join a program where you do a lot of back squatting and a lot of running. But that's been good because it kind of forces me to push a little bit, to get out of my comfort zone, to be uncomfortable, and to work on grit. Because some of the sessions are very difficult, and especially when you're focusing on an exercise that you're not very good at, especially mentally, you kind of break through that mental barrier, and I start to feel more comfortable under the barbell. I focus on form better, and I've seen other things come out of it too as well. Not just making good progress, but I've seen good progress in other lifts that we add in, like my deadlift, and you see when you do like something as simple as a back squat, you think about, okay, you go on Instagram or you go wherever, everybody's cleaning and snatching, 500 pounds and doing all these crazy Olympic lifts, which are cool. But then if you really go back and focus on the basic kind of building block lifts, the really like the foundational ones, and you do it really well consistently over and over, that's when I'm starting to see some improvement in my other lifts and just core stability and strength. So that's been really helpful for me.
Yeah, it's interesting. The Louis Simmons, I'm a big fan of, just from getting a lot of lifting information from him, hardcore powerlifting coach for anyone out there who might not know. And he had an article I read a long time ago about how to increase your deadlift without deadlifting. And I thought of you when you posted that in the group the other day, because he just talks about basically squatting more, deadlifting less, and your deadlifting going up just because of how much stronger you are getting. And it doesn't really work in reverse though. You can't go on a deadlifting program 3 days a week and expect your squat to go up much, maybe minimally, but it's not going to be super effective. And the other point I had was the confidence thing. I feel like the first 4 weeks we were all working on that. It was like, because I've squatted a lot and I was getting under some weights where I'm like, well, I don't know if I can do this for this many reps. It sounds a little sketchy, but all the math says that we can, and you can. So there's a ton of confidence in squatting. Would you feel that you're like kind of burst through that barrier there? Like, are you pretty confident, or do you feel like you still have some ways to go before you're 100% confident under the bar with the back squat?
I feel like I'm pretty confident. Still want to keep moving on, but like you said, in the way the first 4 weeks the program was set up really helped to kind of burst that bubble. I mean, I think I had I had this mental sort of idea of where my limits were, especially think about like a 75% 5x5, right? And then we were doing 75%, 5x9. We were doing working our way up safely to some of these really high volume sort of sets. And you realize I can do this. It's just you set these mental blocks for yourself and pushing through them the way we did safely, but going out there and going for it.
has really helped me to have the confidence that I can do the sets. And now another thing we're doing is getting used to being under more high intensity. Even if we're doing some low reps, but some like 90, I think last week we did like a 90, or this Monday, like a 96% at one point, and just being comfortable with that. So it's the amount of reps and just getting down and being comfortable that I don't immediately have to just bail. I can do this. And that's been great for me to go ahead and push a little bit.
That's awesome, man. And are you have anything specifically you're chasing with following BCT?
My two goals that I share with the group, I want to do a 400-pound back squat and a sub 6-minute mile. So looking at my most recent, when I started the program, my back squat 1 rep max was 325. And that's a lifetime one, because before I joined Garage Gym Athlete, I never really did a lot of lifting. I did a lot of running and stuff, but never really had a barbell or anything. Mile time, I went with my most current. We tested before out of our last testing cycle, because I've run a 5:30 mile, but I was 18. It was actually the first mile of a 5K race, and it all went downhill from there.
Nice.
But
that's awesome.
I was in cross country, and I came to that first mile marker. I saw 5:30, and I thought, oh boy, this is bad. And then I finished because I wasn't 18. I was like 16. That's why I finished. But I took a mile, and so it was a 7-minute mile that I ran in our last testing cycle before we started BCT. So my goal is 400 and sub 6 minutes. Certainly, if I pass that, I'll certainly want to go past that.
Yeah.
So those are my two goals.
I think you will, man. What was your most recent testing?
The most recent testing we did after the first 4-week cycle, I got up to a 340-pound back squat, which for me is the biggest jump I've ever done. It's most of my back squatting I've ever done. So I think it correlates. And then I got to a 643 mile. And that is interesting too, just being comfortable, not just the back squatting, but a lot of our, we're doing zone 2 and zone 4 runs, but having the interval days every week takes me back to when I was on track. And I like that. And that's just getting, it sounds very cliche, but getting comfortable, being uncomfortable, the feeling of when you're pushing it and knowing that you're not going to keel over right there. You'll be able to push through it.
Yeah, that is the intervals, man. I don't know what pushes me more, trying to hold pacing for intervals or heavy weight under the bar. They're both up there for me mentally on keeping me in check.
Mm-hmm.
I think if I were to join BCT, I think our goals would be the same, 400 and sub 6. It's still up in the air if I join in 2021.
Weren't you going to join? Like, what's holding you back now? You got a gym, you moved. Like, what are we waiting on?
Well, I said I needed to get a full cycle of actually heavy lifting, heavy barbell lifting. And month 2, I've been pretty dang sore and beat up at some days, but it's felt pretty decent. But I still think I need to get a full 12 weeks before I jump to squatting 3 times a week.
All right.
It's interesting. Your body the first week, I was definitely, struggling to get downstairs, but then you just get used to it. And the first couple of weeks when we did that first 4-week block, I purposely didn't calculate the INOL. I didn't go in my calculator app. I'm like, I'm not doing it. And towards the end, I'm like, what are we lifting? And I calculated it and just kind of blew my mind, but it worked. And now we're going back. We're kind of doing the ebb and flow. I purposely didn't even want to. I'm just going to do it. I'm not even going to try to mentally calculate what this is.
Yeah. So it's, and I'm actually doing a video on this now. It will probably already be published for this podcast is published, but I call it that technique. It's a secret technique. I don't teach it anywhere, but it's called the PR squeeze. And I used to do this with athletes when I would run them through 1-man-1 barbell, not just like having 1-man-1 barbell and other programs, is when you come in and you have specific goals and you push people really hard for just a 4-week wave. Everyone's going to PR basically everything, because of we essentially fit 12 weeks worth of linear periodization into 4 weeks. It's very hard to not at least PR by 5 pounds on your back squat and a couple seconds on your mile, and everyone smashed that for the most part. And then you back off in the next wave, but then you're operating all of your percentages off these greater intensities. So now we're really digging deep into seeing greater results for that last wave. So that's kind of why we do that. But you're right. If you continued with that level of INOL for like weeks, the next wave for 8 weeks, the next week for 12 weeks, everyone's injured by the end of the 12 weeks. That's what would happen. So yeah.
So you just gave everyone programming version of smelling salts.
I guess so. Yeah, it's 4 weeks of smelling salts.
Just the quick jump real quick.
All right, cool, man. Well, are there any other big updates that we should cover before I start asking some of these other questions?
Not really. I'll be interested to see moving forward because I intend to be on BCT through the end of September when the 1 year course. I'm going to do the whole thing, not knowing the future. If there is a possibility that I do travel again before next September, which is could be here or there, so I'm not going to get my crystal ball out and try to guess that. Really planning ahead to think about what I would do if I end up, like for instance, at a hotel that doesn't have a gym or has a very minimal gym. I think a hotel I went to in Belgium it was like a closet, and so it was essentially it had like a bike and a treadmill, and it was literally this old city that was built in the 1200s. So the building they had, obviously no one was squatting back then. They were probably using stones or something really cool. But so I did my running outside and everything, but it was helpful to me, kind of an offshoot, being someone who does travel occasionally, having the No Gear built into the app. That was really nice because I remember I emailed the team. I said, hey, I'm going to be gone for a week. I want to have some No Gear. And just having that there was helpful. But to think ahead, if I do travel, I want to be able to plan out for that week. That would be interesting to see. But other than that, really no updates.
Man, I already have a week trip in January and then another one in February. I'm already getting anxious about it. I'm like trying to scope out gyms and like intervals. I won't be able to, like, if I'm not at a track, they'll be okay, not as good. But squatting, there's no seeing that stimulus without actually squatting. So
I saw this guy, and you see all the crazy stuff on Instagram, but this guy he had two of like the freestanding racks. And he brought his barbell with him. He's like on the side of a mountain, on the side of a cliff.
I saw that guy.
Like that, and you get a lot of credit on Instagram for that sort of stuff.
That's what I should do. I saw that there's a guy who did that like deadlifting too, right? He's like deadlifting everywhere.
Same sort of thing.
Cool, man. Well, let's get updates to these questions. The hardest workout you've ever done, has that changed?
I think I didn't look at my answers last time. I think they're relatively the same. I think the hardest mentally workout I've ever done so there's two hardest mentally workouts. I think I gave these last time. I've run multiple marathons. The first marathon I ever ran was in 2007 in Chicago when it was 92 degrees and a person died. And just finishing that, when they were telling me, the race is canceled, you can just stop. But I was 3 miles away from my car, so I couldn't really, what do I do? Hop in a taxi. Just finishing that mentally. I ran a Spartan in maybe 5 years ago now. I wasn't really training well at the time. I just signed up for it. I signed up for the 8 miler, the in between one. I forgot what that's called. And it was very hot that day, and it had rained the previous day, and so it was almost impassable. It was one of their courses in Peoria, Illinois, and it was almost impassable just with the mud and stuff. So just the mental trying to finish it, but just physically, the one that I struggle the most with, and I think I said last time, is just this broken arrow, only because of the 1,000 double unders. I've gotten better at double unders, but that getting through the first half is okay. Doing all the buy-in, the run, and the bike, I got that. But then when I get to those 1,000 double unders, when you get to the point where you're just doing one double under time, that's when I really struggle. That's like a physical and mental thing because I'm hitting my shins and I'm just working on my double unders is something I do on and off. Obviously not a ton with the BCT program, but that's where it really gets me in that workout.
That one's brutal. All right, man. In your opinion, what's the best activity for building mental toughness?
I think just being consistent. And it's even showed a lot more during this pandemic and having a lot of opportunity to be frustrated, to be focused on things I can't control, how everybody responds and how my job responds, being able to stay focused on what I can control. And even when that frustration is there, being able to get up in the morning and say, I have every reason that someone would give me the okay to say, not going to do it today, not feeling it, but getting out of bed regardless. That's been the biggest way to build mental toughness, and to continue to do it over time too. Long-term continuity with it has been the biggest thing.
Now, if you could only have one piece of equipment to train with for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Last time I said a barbell. This time I'll say a barbell and my new squat rack. Because I've gotten to the point, I went from I don't like back squats, I get nervous about back squat today, to I enjoy it. It doesn't feel good all the time, but I like it. So I bought a new squat rack from Rogue. I actually was able, it took me like 2 months of checking the website every day. But I have been using the ones that I built when I started the program, which worked great. The concrete in the 5-gallon buckets. But coming into BCT, I said, okay, let's get a squat rack. The one thing
that was a good decision.
Yeah, those wood ones are great, but the one thing is, when you try to re-rack it with the wood ones, if you're not careful, it's gonna go on you. So I got the Rogue SML1, which is kind of their middle of the road, but really solid. And I would take that in a barbell, and that would be it.
It's awesome.
I don't remember what your last one was, but or how your gym has evolved since we've talked last. But if you could add something to your gym, what would be next or biggest on the list? I
would love to have a rower. I would love that, and that's one of those things that's just non-existent out there. To kind of augment. I've got a treadmill. I live in Chicago, so pretty soon it'll be 20, 30 below. But to have a rower would be nice. And it was funny. I was talking to my 9-year-old son about how, I can't find a squat rack. I can't find this. Everything's sold out. And he had a really good point. And he said, when this does end and everything opens back up, all these people who bought all this stuff, half of them are going to go ahead and sell it because they're going to go back to the commercial gyms. They're going to go back to what they're comfortable with. And then you're going to hop on Facebook Marketplace. You're going to hop on all these places and just see all these rowers, all this stuff. So I'll keep that in the back of my mind.
It's just taking a lot longer than we would have hoped.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, your son told you this?
He told me that.
How old is he?
He's 9.
Dude.
He's a pretty smart kid. He's like, well, if you just wait, everybody's going to go sell them again. I said, you're right.
Yeah, I think we need to be focusing on that right now. So you need to get this kid to start his own business in the next 2 years.
So once you see things open up, keep on those marketplaces online. You're going to see everybody dumping off all this home gym stuff they bought when they realize they don't really want to do it.
I mean, that's 100% true. That's kind of what I wrote in the Garage Gym Athlete book a long time ago, but it had nothing to do with pandemic. Is just there are a lot of people who have good ideas, but they aren't the type of person who really wanted to be a garage gym athlete or a home gym athlete. And I think there are a lot of people with plenty of money who bought a lot of awesome stuff because the money was not a factor for them. But then they're like, nah, and they're not even going to care what they sell it for, because it's not a money issue for them. They're just like, I'm not using it anymore. I think a lot of that's going to happen. I don't know when, like Joe said, I probably maybe next year, but I do think that's going to be happening. So cool. 9-year-old crushed it, man. All right. What's your best advice for all the garage gym athletes out there?
I think my best advice would be to get into a routine and stick with it, and also setting goals for yourself. So the times I find I struggle the most is when I usually work out in the morning. So I usually get up around 5:30 and do my training then. Sometimes I will say, okay, I'll sleep in, I'll do it in the afternoon. But then just knowing that it's like a snowball rolling downhill. You do it once, you're going to do it a second time. Then you're trying to squeeze in the workout and life's getting busy. Sticking with consistency is the hardest thing, but finding something to get you out of bed, if that's your thing, or to do it, really setting aside a time and making that your time. And really scheduling. If you don't schedule it, if you don't plan ahead and kind of think ahead of how you're going to get the workouts done, you're going to not get them done. And that's happened to me a lot of times. So I would say be consistent and actually schedule your workout time. Block it off in your schedule. Don't just say, I'm going to find some time at some point in the day and do it, because then the day happens and things happen and you have responsibilities and stuff. So if you plan for it and schedule for it, you can get it done.
I love that. Actually putting it on the calendar as a meeting too. And a meeting that's not optional, I think is a big part. Like any other meeting we have is not optional, right? Like if you're meeting with a client in a different country or whatever, you're not going to be like, I'm not going to push that to later. You guys have both already committed to do it. Mm-hmm. Right. And so that's the same thing. I feel like when you put the training time on your calendar, it just needs to not be a negotiable thing because it's just you or whatever. So I think that's phenomenal advice, man. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, that's one thing I was actually wondering is how you've adjusted to fully working from home. We've talked to a few people and it seems like it's, even though people that don't work from home, they think, oh, you're home all day, you can just work out whenever you want. But it's more common that I've seen for people that we work from home that you have your set schedule, your set blocked off time to do your fitness and stuff like that. And especially if you're having kids doing schoolwork at home and stuff like that, to actually block it off is pretty important and pretty great to do.
You have to treat it like work when you're working from home. That's been the interesting thing to me you have to really, I think one thing I miss, and I've just started to go back to the office recently, but even that drive to and from work, it creates a space in your day where you transition from I'm home, Ryan, and I'm transitioning into work, Ryan, transitioning back to home. It creates a space in the day. And when you work from home every single day, you just walk downstairs and boom, you're at work, and you close the computer and boom, you're at home. You don't have that transition time. And if you don't think about it and you'll kind of compartmentalize it in your head, everything blurs together. And then you lose some of that. That's a personality type too, but you have to be a little more concrete in your time blocks and everything.
Yeah. It took me a number of years to figure that one out. Cause I used to have the commute, and then right outside this door, is family life. And so that was hard for me for a while, because I'm a type of person who really, the military like ingrained that in me, this compartmentalization of like in the military, they don't want to hear about your family life, to be honest. Like maybe if you had like a good supervisor, but otherwise like I don't want to hear that your kid's sick or like whatever else. Like don't talk about it. This is what we're doing, and so I had that to an extreme degree, but that's awesome, man. Cool. Well, I appreciate you, Ryan, being a part of the community as long as you have been, crushing it on BCT with me and, many other athletes. So that's awesome, dude. And just everything that you have done with consistency in the community and just being awesome, dude. So thanks for taking your time today.
Well, thank you guys. And just having this program is so great. Yeah, back then in 2018, I kind of stumbled onto it, and it was a good stumble because it's been great to be part of the community and to have the ability to train at home. And it's just been awesome. So thank you. Thanks to the whole team. It's been great.
Thanks, man. Thanks for listening to the Garage Gym Athlete podcast. If you want to learn more, go to garagegymathlete.com. You can learn about our training. Let us send you a copy of our book, The Garage Gym Athlete, or you can even get featured on the Garage Gym Athlete podcast. Thanks for listening.